For sure. I definitely love making taglines. So the one for me for undergrad, because that really was a degree in research, was research is the backbone of the clinician. And so for me, I valued having the research background because in this, era of evidence-based practice and medicine, um, we have to factor in like the different studies and findings and how does that play a role in how we guide and provide protocols to patients, but also acknowledging what came for me out of this, honestly, which directed me to the comm space was while I was at Harvard, one of my team members went to Tufts for nutrition communication and spoke of, its founding. I went to go visit the program and I started to look at how we were recruiting using gringo images to a Dominican population. And it just didn't make sense as someone who just, again, I won a 4-year art scholarship. I love art, love photography, all of that. And I would doodle. I was a doodler in anatomical sciences, like sketching human anatomy and all of that. And so for me, it was just like this acknowledgement, like there was this other side of me, like the Africa and the America. Like I'm not one or the other, I'm both. And so I'm not just science, I am art too. And it gives me life to be able to be creative in my expression, but to use my expression as a means to like help society. So for me, health comm was a perfect combination of being able to not throw away all the STEM studies, but at the same time bring it over to the art of communication and how do you do that in a way that can improve society. So that's where the goal and of going to Tufts became very clear to me. I want to get as much experience working in the community, living in the community. I lived, basically in the community that I once was doing research in, like Jamaica Plains, Roxbury, um, and started interning with community health organizations like Boston Black Women's Health Institute, local boutique PR firms that were Black women led, working on healthcare accounts, and then also big firms like a Hill Holiday or Harvard Mag or PBS Boston, just to get, all these different experiences of media. And I was very proactive. Again, I never wanted to leave opportunity on a table. So I think I took on the identity of a Jamaican. And so I definitely had 3 internships going on at the same time, paid, unpaid, found ways to get one to pay for the other. I mean, it was definitely a growth opportunity. And then to be in the frigid cold of Boston, I never had cold like that in my life. And I said, never again. So I definitely give props to those who come out of Boston and survive, because going from Oklahoma, where at the time I was living like a queen. I had I was on scholarships because I understood the scholarship machine. I made a business out of just applying for scholarships. And so that's what motivated me to keep my academics up, to be in every club that made sense, and then to be very clear in my writing of my goals in these scholarships. And so it paid for everything. And when it came to grad school, I picked tough. Sure, I could say for the education, the reputation, it was number 1 in community health by U.S. News. I factored all that in, but at the same time, they gave me money. So, and I applied to 9 undergrad, 9 grad, and that decision was very clear on like, okay, what's the best value? Oklahoma State was the best value. Princeton Review even named it, and that's how I look for like good deals, just like shopping. That's how I saw education, and that really just set me up for the opportunity to be in DC, because by working at a little local nonprofit doing the work I I valued and appreciated, which was developing Black women health programs that was multi-generational. We had a site visit by the Health and Human Services Regional Director, and he was just like, why don't you apply to the Emerging Leader Program? Like, okay. So I did. I made sure I used his name and I followed up with him. And out of 2,000 plus people, they picked 80 and I was one of them. And so it was a great opportunity to like, one, guarantee, I had a job coming out of grad school. And so for me, I think because of the hustle, the grit, the resourcefulness, I think those are other critical takeaways. I never looked for any handout. I looked for an opportunity and made the most of every opportunity. And if I didn't know it, I definitely asked questions. And I say this as someone who just, finished teaching a class, my first college class. I've taught before, but mostly community setting as an extension agent, and there's clear difference between the two, and that's why I really appreciated being an extension agent. But I will say, for the generation now, this desire to be hungry and watch the TED Talk on grit, watch the other TED Talk by Lovia Ajayi Jones on being comfortable with the uncomfortable is so important, because in life, everyone will have the similar goals, whether it's to be the doctor, the lawyer, whatever. But how do you choose to be different in the path that you take that makes your path a little bit more unique because you've defined it on your own terms? I think that's so important, to be willing to advocate for yourself, because if you don't, who will? And it's not about being a narcissist. There's a fine line about being boastful and lacking humility, but this conviction, like Jesus, to know that you were destined for greatness, to make a great impact on society, to leave it a little bit better than where it was before you came to this planet, is something that I find incredibly important. So when you think you have no clue about why you're here, find someone to mentor, to pour into you, but also make sure you pour into someone else, because the cycle of life is about being symbiotic. It's not about being extractive that this Western gaze will have you believe. But if you don't pour like a gardener into the soil, how do you expect any nourishment to come forth and bear fruit? So we all have to be like the gardener and see how do we plant the seeds in the next, and we will benefit as a whole because of it.